Like I said, really short break, but good conversation that we had. And the guys from Really Good Emails, if you don't subscribe to their newsletter, visit their site, you will absolutely 100% do so after this. Hopefully you might even consider going to one of their unspam conferences, which I have heard are amazing, and I'm so glad that it's post-COVID and I can go to one of them here in the not too distant future, I hope. But Mike Nelson, co-founder of Really Good Emails, is going to come to the stage and talk about how to leverage zero and first-party data as you are communicating with your audience.
I have a shit ton of examples. So if you cannot see the screen because you're far away or a weird angle, I'm going to give you like a minute or two to situate or position yourself so that you can see the screen better. Because at the end, I can share it with you, but it's just going to be a lot easier if you can see what I'm talking about. Because I thought I was going to get like I thought it was going to be the main stage, you know, like they saved that for me. But no, we got this one. But I really know where I sit with interval. Okay, I guess you're all cool with where you're sitting. I guess this is going to be fun. Thank you for the clap. Oh, shucks. Thanks so much. I'm just going to bring this up because I didn't bring my glasses, so this screen doesn't really help me, and we'll go through it. So you're here to talk about first-party, zero-party data. We're going to show you how to do that, how to make your emails great with that. But before we start, I just have to talk about Cookie Monster, because whenever I talk about cookies, this is what is ingrained in my brain now, because I grew up in the 80s watching PBS, Sesame Street. Sid is actually his name. I don't know if you guys knew that. And he had a short career doing covers of songs, one of which was a Carly Rae Jepsen song, Call Me Maybe, which will now be stuck in your head for the rest of the day because it's such a good earworm. But as he said, I just met you and this is crazy, but you got cookies, so share it maybe. All right. I'm guessing some of you have been in digital marketing for a while. I've been in it for 15 years. And when first party and third party cookies kind of came about, it was a godsend, especially with Facebook. We could lookalike models. We could do all sorts of really cool stuff. Our cost of acquisition was really low because it was super highly targeted, and we could see exactly who came to our site. But there's now a shift, and so we're going to talk about what cookies are in comparison to first-party and zero-party data, just as like a refresher, so that we kind of can move past cookies. So third-party cookies is usually like a pixel or something placed on your site for advertising purposes, like Facebook or AdWords. So they can track who hit your site, and they can use that to go and attach that data to other publishers or other reasons or other targeted advertising reasons, right? We've used third parties. That's essentially what builds out our social media campaigns with targeting. It's all built on that. Now we can move past that. First-party cookies are cookies that are placed on your computer so that the site that you're visiting can reference you again and authenticate you in some kind of way and use that information to make that experience better. The downside about first-party cookies is that it can only be used when you're on their site. So it's like this logged-in state. Only when you're there can they use and see the cookie. Like they can present something to you while you're on the site, but they can't use it to take that data and put it into a database and then reference that database and do segmentation off of that and all that kind of stuff. So that's why in this world of a cookieless world where everyone's scared about cookies dying off, it's actually not a bad thing, because if you think about where first-party data comes from and zero-party data come from, which we'll talk about, from cookie to data, and not data like the Star Trek data, this is like the actual data, which is always illustrated with a can for some reason. It's like this cylinder thing, and we'll see some of those cans moving forward. This is why it's important that we're all moving here, because it's actually better for us. The people that are visiting our site are going to be giving us real data, and it's not, well, maybe they look like this person and they could do this thing. This is actually what this person's doing, and we can use that to our benefit. And we can segment off that, and we can target off that, and we can make this a much more enjoyable experience. So first-party data are things, events, searches, purchases These are all the ways that a customer is coming or a visitor is coming to our site or our app, or maybe our store. We have tracking, some weird way of, anyone been injected with like things yet? I don't know. Anyways, I don't know where that joke was going. I didn't try that out when I was practicing. It clearly did not go well. This is where this all gets stored in that can at the bottom right corner. And you can use your dials and you say, this is exactly what I want, this is what I don't want. And usually that can is a customer data platform or a CDP, Segment.io. There's some other people, we'll talk about that in this as well. But you'll capture all that data into a database so that you can use and reference that data later. Super, super useful. And then zero-party data, as we talk about definitions. I swear, this is my last definition. You're like, holy cow, how many definitions are we going to go through? This is the last one. Zero-party data is when a customer or visitor intently gives you or proactively gives you their information. So they fill out a profile, they tell you exactly who they are, how high they are, how much they weigh. That is stuff you can't glean from their behaviors. It's intentional. You've asked it, they've given it to you, or they've sent it to you in some way. We all good with definitions. We're all happy. We understand cookies to data and how data is now captured. Okay. So we're talking about the collection of this data. And first to do this, I always talk about identities and behaviors. So identity is really who you are. This is your name, your location, your gender, or binary gender, whatever it is. This is who you are. It doesn't really change. You can change it, but it's strictly like your identity. Whereas your behavior, as you can tell from this change in that person's cool, suave haircut and their neck tattoo that they have now, is the things they do. It's the things they research, the things they click on. It's the categories they're interested in. So we're going to break this up into behaviors and identity as we move forward. So here's just a better definition that I can't read without my glasses. But again, this is the matching up who they are and what they do. So the next thing we're talking about is how we connect those things. So we have all these events. These are the behavioral events that are being tagged and captured from your site. So these are the things that people are searching for, the keywords, the items that they're clicking on, the things that they're purchasing. And all those are these little lightning bolts that are happening around this person's face. And for us to connect the dots, we need to streamline that. This is now connecting all those lightning bolts together. And this is called event streaming. So you say, this person started here, they did this thing next. And this is really important because this is going to define what kind of targets and objectives we're trying to get to as we get better with our first-party data and our zero-party data. And as we build our campaigns, all of our campaigns need an objective in figuring out where they started and where we want them to end as a conversion event. All right, so I know they told me not to get off screen, but these are the things that we can, this is a sample of all the different kinds of events that you can capture on your website, on your app, in your messaging. Is there anything that rings true to anyone in this crowd here that they're like, oh yeah, I use that? Okay, some people, yes. All right. Man, I really wish that was a bigger screen. Sorry, y'all. So I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna look at this screen over here. So for if you're running a software company, your click events, your browsing, that's gonna be really important. If you're running an e-commerce store, it's going to be what discounts they applied, if they're a loyal customer, if they come in before, if they have an account or not, if they've saved an item, right? So all these things are really important. These are all things that you can capture really easily with your developers or with your teams, marketing teams. So what you're saying is I capture everything, right? Everything that somebody's doing on my page, I want to capture that whole thing. From the second they enter the door, I'm going to watch them like a hawk until the second they leave. And so, yeah, we want to capture everything, right? No, you do not want to capture everything, because then it's just like data, and you don't know what to do with it. It's just like junk, right? You have to be very clear on what you're capturing and why you're capturing and why that leads to a conversion. So what we're going to get to are a lot of examples here. But the key here is about first data is getting the right data from the right sources. So this could be referral sources. This could be pathing and journeying from your site. So if somebody entered the homepage, did they go to a category page? Did they go to a product page straight from the homepage? In the app, where do they come from? Did they come from a referral from your email? There are all these things you want to capture so that you know where they're going. But again, you don't want just every single event being captured. Every single thing on your site does not give you information of if that person is going to be a better, loyal customer to you. So we're going to get right into some examples. And first off, we're going to use this hypothetical website called reallygoodemails.com because we're all in email marketing here. So I created this hypothetical site that you might find online that has like over 10,000 examples of emails. And I'm going to give you what we did. So there's lots of things that, if you were to create a site like this, you probably want to upload and display emails. You want to filter them. You want to categorize them. You want to save them. You want to share them. These are all things that are events that, as an owner of this site, I might want to see, does this grow loyalty? What are people doing with my site? How do they come back? Where are they coming from? All that stuff. So what we know is that if we capture, again, sorry, that's why I want everyone to sit super close to that TV, because you're not going to be able to read this at all. So we went through and we created our event streams that were really important to us. So I'm going to just say, I'm going to read it to you. See, we got some movers and shakers over here. Yeah. What we have here is in the top left was the awareness category. So that's somebody who landed on our site as they moved into a search kind of behavior. Those are using keywords or filtering. And then they move into the third category or pillar, which is finding emails. So it's attempting to like an email or collecting an email or using or viewing the code of that email. That's all in this kind of find category. And then in the activation, this is what's really important to us. Does that lead to somebody becoming more loyal? So did they successfully like the email? Did they actually join and create an account after they looked at an email? Did they find a collection and then they decided not to? That was also interesting. Like they started it, but they stopped. What stopped them? And then the acquisition or retention, last pillar, told us, did they actually sign in? Did they create an account? Or did they successfully create or collect an email? So we have awareness all the way to finished product, and the journey in between is being streamed. And those are all the events that we are capturing because we've wanted to figure out a hypothesis of, does this journey make sense for people? Do they go somewhere else? In this hypothetical website, this is really simple. In your website where you have 10,000 products and you have blog articles and you've got all these things, you can go through and say which journey would lead to this outcome that we want. This outcome, in our perspective, is creating an account or collecting an email. And so we backtracked and we went and found the events that would lead to that journey just by kind of using the site. And then those are the events that we're tracking. We're not necessarily tracking the referral source in this journey. We're not tracking, did they share the email from this journey? There's other things. Did they visit our blog? Did they join our newsletter? None of those things really mattered in this conversion flow. We have other conversion flows that we set up to see if that works out. So after we discovered and mapped out all of these events, and I would tell you, go back with your teams and be like, hey, what events lead to other events that lead to conversions? Let's map those out, and we'll tie those together. So go home and do that with your friends and family, and sit around a nice Sunday dinner, and it'll be great. And your parents will be like, oh, you're so smart. You went to the San Francisco conference, and you came back, and you're like, look at you. Oh, we're not unhappy that you went off and left college and left us for the rest of your life. So this is what we do, is we go through and after we do this, we put them into a table, and we say exactly what the name of the event is, when does it fire, and what does it contain. So Yesterday we talked about numerical events or string events. So numerical is numbers, string are letters and words. And then how can you reference those later? And that's really important because these, what it contains is the thing that you can pull into your emails as you build your campaigns. So a search would be the event name. It's fired when somebody submits a search, and we are containing the search phrase or the string that they are writing in there. And that's now written to that profile so that when I go back and I do a query on this individual, I can say like, oh, these are the search strings that this person's used, et cetera, et cetera. So we've gone out and we've done a ton of these events, and we've captured them all. And we're going to use some of these event containers in an example here for a second. So email object is what the email that you saw on that website was. And then we have strings of like who the sender was or what was in the subject line. All that kind of stuff is strings. We're going to reference that later in our email. I'm going to build a hypothetical email for you, and then we're going to go into examples. We have a lot of examples. All right, so if you want to capture all the data and do all the things, these are just 3 of the partners that out of many that are iterable partners that do this. There's a lot more. We personally use Segment.io at this hypothetical reallygoodemails.com, and it pulls in all the events that we want, and it appends it to the profiles we want. And so if you don't have somebody who's doing that, you should go talk to those people. There's lots of, go do your research, find out what works for you. And then there's also a URL at the bottom right that I found on Iterable's website. So that's for you over there, the Iterable team. Okay, so every campaign you build needs to have an objective, and then usually 2 or 3 kind of emails that come after it. So we're going to just jump into one of our examples here. What we know is that if someone comes to this site, reallygoodemails.com, and they look at an email, and then they look at the code view of that email, that they're 6 times more likely to come back to the site than others. We've done that because we've tracked their events. We know exactly that. To me, that's like they're loyal, they're converted, they're going to come back. So what we want to do is our objective is actually, since we know that getting to a code view is more of a converter, we want to get people to that last stage. So what we're going to do is we're going to build an email where we say you got to look at that view of that email, but you didn't get the code view. And so we send it to them, and here and highlighted are the containers that we're using to fill that in. So we have the event company. So that would be, in this example, the Apple EarPods. So the event URL, the event image, all those are the things we're pulling in. So image, URL, so the URL of that code view, the image of that email, that's all going to be pulled in. So in this, we say, hey, impress your boss, go and look at the code view, work around with that code, and see what you can do with it. And that's like a little string, our little carrot to get them there. Because we know if they look at code view, it may make them more loyal. And so when we send that out, all that code, all those snippets get dynamically inserted, and this is the end result. Where, sorry, I just pressed on this and not on this. All right, that's the end result. So we said, hey, we know you looked at that Apple email, impress your boss by going to code view. We reference the image that you just looked at. We have a little bit of snippet of the code that comes from that page. And everything here is clickable and linked back to that code view of that email. And so you're like, okay, that's a lot of work. Why are you telling me about this? Why did you go through all this trouble? And that's because of this reason. I want the money, I want the fame, I want the big house, I want people to think I'm cool, I want my boss to think I'm cool. But really, it comes down to the results. And I promised in my little blurb when you're going to join this session that you're like, hey, personalization, first-party data, zero-party data gets results. These are the numbers that we saw just from this campaign. It's gone out to thousands of people. We see an engagement rate of 45%. So if you go to your boss and you're like, hey, I'm going to send an email, and I think 45% of the people are going to engage with this email. And if he tells you no, you might want to just quit. Because that's a crazy, awesome engagement rate. And then we saw that 14% of those people usually go further into creating an account. So a 14% conversion rate off of this one simple campaign is pretty strong indicator of it being successful, right? A 14% conversion rate in e-commerce land, which I do as a full-time thing, is crazy good as well. So if you can get down to the personalized events and send it at the right time with the right things inside it, you can get really good results. And that's what we're going to go through today. So we're going to talk about real-world examples, not this hypothetical world that I come from called reallygoodemails.com. We're not going to talk about those real-world examples from the hit MTV show. We're going to talk about people that may be in this room, and hopefully, if they're not, maybe good too, because I think we're going to, I don't know if we're going to diss on them. So, first one, Netflix. I'm guessing 99% of this audience has a Netflix account. Some of you might have kids. I have 3 of them. They're crazy. They never let me sleep. And so what I do is I go turn on Netflix so I can go get some time away from them just for like 20 minutes maximum. Really, sometimes it ends up to be a couple hours. But what Netflix has here is they have this objective where they know that we want parents to, I don't know, this is my made up objective. All these objectives we're going to show are made up. But this objective is like we want parents to feel good that their kids watch hours and hours and hours of Netflix, right? So they send this email out, or they have sent this email out, which is just like, hey, we have kids shows, and feel good about that, and make your kids, that's like a mass-produced send, right? But what they are doing now is they're sending this email. So when your kids go and watch hours and hours of television or Netflix, they are now giving you all the data and the events that they're tracking on those kids shows. So they're capturing the image events, they're capturing the themes, the recommendation engine. Then they've written these conditions, whereas they know that the kid's profile is true. Again, I don't know, I'm not inside Netflix, I don't know if this is real, but these are the conditions I would write if I were to send these out. But they've watched more than, let's say, 5 hours per week. We know that the account owner is watching also probably at the same time, but maybe in another room, so they don't know what their kids are watching because they're not sitting next to them because they're now watching some, Love Island show on Netflix. Don't hate it. Maybe their kid's profile hasn't logged in for 7 days, and the parents are getting kind of sick of them and saying like, hey, there's a reminder that your kids can watch TV. Sorry, you're like getting a lot of my background in my life here. My parents, my kids. Anyways. And so the conversion that we're tracking for, that Netflix is tracking for, is do kids' shows increase or do they get watched again after this gets sent out? Right? That's a great way to go from objective through conditions to conversions. Right? All right, next up. This is Airbnb. They launched a thing called excursions or experiences. I used to work in the travel industry. They're like, hey, look at our cool excursions and go find something you want to do. So their objective is to get more money when you're on vacation. Not really, but they want you to kind of be loyal and have a good time while you're there. And so what they have begun to send out, instead of this email, is an email that looks like this. They know where you've searched for, San Francisco. They know maybe what activities that are available in that location, and they know the reviews of that location or those activity reviews. And then they can build out this email based on some of the conditions where you've looked at maybe a tier 1 city. So they can't do this for every single location. If you're looking for Smyrna, Tennessee, which has a population of less than 10,000, they probably don't have an activity in that city. So they wouldn't send this email out. So the conditions are, if you looked in a tier 1 city, in travel, tier 1s are places that a lot of people go to. Maybe they're 30 days out from their departure, they haven't viewed any experiences yet, and they spend lots of money on their vacations, on their bookings, so they probably have lots more discretionary income to spend on these experiences as well. And so we want to find out if they booked their excursion. So that's a great example of using that data, bringing in the images, the locations. They've got experiences near your home that you're saying right at the very bottom of that email. But they've gone even further with this next example, and they brought in the dates. So now they know where you're going and when you're going, and this is even better because now they can show you explicit excursions that are available on that date. And then now they can put that into a frame that looks like an agenda. And as you watch the progression of, there's that blank kind of like, hey, come check our excursions, to, oh, look at all the excursions in the city, to, these are the suggested excursions on this date that are available to you. Do you think the conversion rates have exploded? Yes, they've done very, very well. And they don't even send the other kinds of emails anymore. This is the email that they send out. I know this because I watch and look at hundreds of thousands of emails every day, and I can see the progressions of how these work. All right, Strava. Strava users? Are you a Strava user? Are you from Strava? Oh, God bless you. I have lost a good 4 pounds because of you. Yeah, thank you. I know. This dad bod doesn't come easy. So actually, Matthew in the back, he got me onto Strava. I'm really thankful. I got a bike and everything. So if these objectives are false, and you just go along with it, please, okay? Okay, so the objective here is that they want to get lapsed users back into using Strava. Maybe it's been a couple weeks, and so they're like, hey, we're in it for the long run. We want to tell you about some new features maybe, because if you used the app for a while, you've maybe not seen the push notifications. So there's kind of this like, hey, mass email to everybody, this is what's going on. Now in my world, if this is true, if you haven't used the app for a while, and you used to use it a lot, you'd be like something called a local leader, and that was awesome, because now you have all this pride. And now they're sending this email to you where they tell you that you're no longer the local leader because somebody else in that lapsed time has come over and they've done more of those activities since you've been off the app. Now, I know that's not true because I use the app a lot more now, and I know that it's just a punk-ass person who's trying to beat me every time I get the local leader. But the content here is they're using my name, my route name, the map, my efforts, the distance I'm going. They're pulling that all into this email. Again, I talked about my conditions, and the conversion might be that they view what a local legend looks like, and again, maybe go back and complete a new route to go back on. Am I close? Maybe? Yeah. Okay, cool, thanks, awesome. See, I know what I'm talking about. There's one thing that I would change while you're here, because why not? It's a little jarring to say you're not the local legend anymore, because I'm a very competitive person, right? You're like, oh, well, if you said to me, hey, you're in second place. To me, I'm like, we talked about earlier with Jared talking about Gobbledy, and Avis is, they're always number 2, and so they try harder, right? So there's this instance of like, instead of putting me down, how about you go back and recapture that, right? So when you talk about wording in this is just as much as pulling the data in. So it's like, oh, I personalized it, but you have to mix this in with actual content and motivation that might work with. So that's a free one for you guys right there. All right, we have a lot of examples, and I only have 2.5 minutes left. Fashion Nova, the e-commerce brand, something again they could do. Customers, they've looked at a dress as their category. So our objective is to get them into looking at more dresses, and entice them maybe with a discount. Here's 30% off. So what they've done is they've pulled in the search query of little black dress. That's that bold H1 tag kind of at the top. They're referencing that, and they're pulling in images, discounts, pricing, all that kind of stuff there. They pulled in the conditions where you want to only show this if you have more results than 36. So if somebody searches for a keyword and that keyword only has one, kind of going back to my Smyrna, Tennessee example, you want to make sure that you're not sending an email that has just blank stuff in there. So there's conditions there, and then we want to make them purchase the product. Zillow, again, looking for a house. This is buying a home. We take a look at what Zillow has to offer. We're going to tell you, hey, go get our guide. That's great. But then they can actually show you, where that place is, how that's developing, how homes are selling in that location. I think some Zillow people are here today. Are you seeing a trend that you can? There's like one example of what you can do, but then if you add conditions and you add events and you can pull in all these personalization, then that can get you through there. So I'm actually going to move through these other examples that I had on first-party data, and we're going to move into zero-party data. Zero-party is awesome. Zero-party, to me, is like one of the fun ways that you can make email personalized, and it's really probably the easiest way to personalize an email, and I'm not saying just your first name. Like, adding a first name is not personalized. Adding a first name is like table stakes now. So if you talk about the identity and the behaviors, this goes back to our identity, where we are pulling in all the things that they're doing. So you get this identity from account setups, surveys, quizzes, their location. You're pulling the information from the language settings on their computer. There's all that kind of stuff that you can capture into that profile information. But the key, like as we said, to first-party data, the key to reaping the rewards for first-party data is right data from the right sources. For zero-party data, it's asking for the right data at the right time. So when somebody's engaged with you, this is a great time to say, hey, give me a little bit more information. When you have these pop-ups, like join our newsletter, you don't want to ask for like 7 or 8 fields all at once. That's a little jarring and mean. So you ask for their email address, and then when they come back, you say, oh, by the way, we set up a profile for you. You want to give us a little bit more information, and that's more likely to convert. So asking when to get the information is great. So here is just an example of, I actually don't know why I put that there, but we're going to go to the next one. Sorry, I think that something messed up with my slides here. OK, so again, back to our hypothetical. We've got this first name that we used, and what we added is we went and found everyone's first letter of their name, and then we created a cool rap name for them as well. So if your name was Mike, it was like MDZ, or S, it was like the shits, or something like that. And we pulled that in. And if you didn't have a name, then we sent you this email saying, uh-oh, we don't have your name. Can you please give it to us? And we did stuff like that. This was really good for us, and these are the numbers that come from just asking people for this data. So we had 63% people engaged in this first email, where we asked people for their names, and 83% of those people came in and filled in their information. So if we had their names, it was great. It was like, hey, we love you. Thanks for doing this. If they didn't, that's the results. We can ask for that profile data really well. Oh, shoot, I'm out of time. OK, so we're going to go into some examples. So names, we showed some names. This is another example where we created a band name for you off of that. And we asked you what kind of your favorite junk food was. And we created a bag of chips off of that and personalized it based off of that profile data. Again, those are really easy ways to do those things to make them fun and make people coming back. And they're like, oh, this is great. They really know who I am. They understand me. And they want to be my best friends. Birthdays are a great way to have that profile data as well. So the reason I brought this one in is it's not just sent on your birthday, but they personalize it with the person's name within that image. So it says happy bonkers birthday, Emma. So it's the person's name is like injected into that image. There's lots of tools out there that can do that. Sorry, I know I'm running late, but they came for this, so I'm going to give it to them. Grammarly, they send out the anniversary of your birthday. A year later, this is what you're doing. They might give you a discount. These are easy things, right? These are things to capture, ways to make people happy. Another thing on doing kind of birthday or anniversaries is giving people time objectives. So because they entered on this day and they should be done with something at this time, we can actually send them a triggered email at this cadence, 7 days in, 14 days in. So this is a reminder to take your pills or acne medication or something like that. So it says, congrats, after 21 days. This is what should be going on with your face. Okay? Product interests are another thing you can ask people for. So here, your objective is to have new users find products quicker by taking a quiz or talking directly to an esthetician. Because you don't know what they want. Are they in here for acne cream? Are they in here for lotion? Are they in here because their working hands are dry? As we've learned from the last person who's in here, Jared. So you ask them, hey, give us that information or get online with an esthetician, who that esthetician is now going to take a zero-party data, going to write it to the profile. Now we know what you're interested in. So again, this is one in that same space. But what they do here is with some of that information you've given them, is again, this is really small, but in that email example, the lotion that's colored has a person's name and what their suggested lotion, customized lotion is for them, which is a really nice touch that they use with that first-party data or zero-party data. This is a fun one where Skillshare, I just asked people their engagement was like, what's your mood today? And that's a good way to say, maybe if somebody has a good mood, they might enjoy our classes more. And if they say yes, we'll send them more classes. If they say no, we just won't email them that day. Right? So there's some cool things you can ask in that sense. As you build, another way of getting zero-party data is asking people what products they're interested in. So building a guitar. These are the kind of guitar you want. There's an example. You see where this is going, right? Like this is not brain science. This is easy just to ask people, these are the products, these are what we want to know about you, this is how we do things. So Apple does this well. You can get into location data. So the Apple example is tax-free day, and they knew that because I lived in Tennessee. And so that day, they said if you come buy something in Tennessee that day, you'll get a discount. And then, sorry, I'll go back to that one. That's what that one is. Here's Uniqlo, who uses the weather data. This can be really complicated because you don't want to send this email out, say, come grab a jacket if it's raining, but it's also like really hot outside while it's raining. You don't really want to buy a jacket, so you have to have location data and weather data combined in this one. This is carbon credits and carbon dioxide setting of your location. That's a pretty cool one. The objective was just to kind of teach people that that's what's going on around. So it's not really like, come buy our stuff. It's like, here's some additional information because we know who you are and what you're doing, and it makes us happy. Sorry, Matthew, I'm kind of taking into your time. Yelp does a good job doing this with location. Uber does a good job with this location. You probably get these emails all the time. This is AllTrails. Again, what the places you've been, what you're doing. So your data strategy starts now, and it's up to you on how to use it. This is like just a precautionary. So this is a company that you might know called TripAdvisor, who thinks I'm going to this place in Mexico, and every 4 days they send me a variation of this place. So they're using personalized data and search behavior and all this kind of stuff, but they don't have their cadence right because I don't really care about going there anymore, and it's been going on for 7 months. So if you're from TripAdvisor, please fix this. Because you don't want to do this either, right? You don't want to set up this cadence and be like, oh, we have this behavior, but then don't set up a conversion to tracking or something like that. So this is just a cautionary tale. As you walk away, please don't be like that. There's just some things to take back to your boss, because you're like, I went to this thing, and they taught me these things about how it's a valuable asset, and it makes it highly relevant, and it's a differentiator for us. So you can write those 3 things down, and you say, that's what I learned, and hopefully come back next year. And thanks and stuff. All right?